going.
All right, hello, it's Mitch Robson with the Chicago Thinker. We're here with Christina Pushaw, former press secretary for Governor DeSantis and current rapid response director for his re-election campaign. So we wanted to ask, we spoke with Jonathan Chait and he, of New York Magazine, and he discussed, he saw Governor DeSantis' speech and said that by saying they lied to us about mRNA vaccine efficacy, he is courting anti-vaxxers, and you are embroiled in this and telling him that he's wrong about that. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on his comment?
Well, so first of all, I believe what Governor DeSantis said in his keynote was that they were wrong about the efficacy of mRNA vaccines, not necessarily that they lied. Although, you know, it's debatable what motivates the public health experts, but it's unquestionable that they were wrong, whether that was intentional or not. They were wrong because of what the data shows us. They were wrong because Joe Biden and Walensky, the CDC director, had both said last year that getting a vaccine would prevent you from getting COVID. And that's a very black and white statement with no room for nuance. And I think that was an irresponsible statement to make, because at that point, perhaps they didn't know. Perhaps they knew and they weren't telling the truth, but let's just say they didn't know. They shouldn't have been so overconfident. They shouldn't have stated it in like a black and white manner that like, you have to get this because you won't get COVID, you won't spread it, because that was the justification used for vaccine passports and mandates. And that's why we care about it. That's why the governor cares about it, because we're completely against all of that, the biomedical security state, the mandates, the passports, the infringement on medical freedom. And so I think if they had just admitted that like you can get this vaccine but it's not going to prevent you from getting COVID nor from transmitting it to somebody else, there would be no justification in there like to anyone for a mandate.
Right.
Because it would just be about like you personally lowering your risk of severe disease versus or like death versus spreading it to others. The only reason that they were justifying a mandate or trying to justify it, it wasn't justified, but the only reason was that they said it would stop people from spreading it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think what Jonathan Chait is doing, I mean, it's irresponsible first of all, but it's also laughable because we can all see a year later like what the data is telling us. We see people like whether it's Jen Psaki or Joe Biden or other prominent public figures who have gotten 2, 3, 4 shots and still had COVID, still tested positive, still had to isolate. So we can see that what was being said a year ago simply wasn't true and that they were wrong. And so saying that that's courting anti-vaxxers, I think it's absurd because it's just stating the truth. I mean, is stating the truth, does that mean you're courting anyone? I don't see it that way. And I think, you know, Jonathan Chait, he's looking for clicks. He's playing to a certain audience on his Twitter. That they have this caricature of Governor DeSantis in their minds, and it includes, among other things, supposedly that he's an anti-vaxxer and all of this stuff. But even though that's not accurate, their caricature, like, he has to play that up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's never had access to Governor DeSantis. He's never interviewed him. He's never heard from him directly. I mean, he was sitting in the back of the room during that speech tweeting. So I would say take everything he says with a grain of salt.
Sure. Yeah, and just a quick follow-up about that. I was curious. I actually spoke with Mr. Chait yesterday, and his response to me was that they had, when they made these comments, primarily people like Joe Biden, Rochelle Walensky, Rachel Maddow, all people that said it will protect you, the vaccine, from transmission and infection. He said that they had not anticipated variants, and this is only because of variants. Should the anticipation of variants have been baked into their predictions about it not preventing, or about it preventing transmission and infection?
Well, I'm not a scientist or doctor, so I wouldn't want to speculate on like how likely variants would have been. But I do think more broadly, they should have hedged their word. They should have been a lot more careful with their messaging, because in any case, saying that you cannot get or transmit COVID And making a blanket statement like that without having real world evidence to back it up is irresponsible. It's wrong.
Of course.
And then not admitting when you were wrong. That's the worst part to me, is the fact that they were wrong and they didn't admit it. To this day, they still don't admit it, and they make excuses about whether it's variants that they didn't anticipate or whether it's just like with mask mandates, Omicron escaped the mask, the other variants did not. Well, I don't think that's true, because we've seen data from previous variants that also showed mask mandates didn't stop it. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem, is the lack of humility, the pronouncements from on high with no evidence to back them up, and then lack of humility and lack of self-correction when you're proven wrong. That's not leadership, I think, and that's not science.
Yeah,
science should be about the evidence, looking at the evidence, and then analyzing what it means and reporting accurately what it means, and they didn't do that.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for your time, and you're absolutely right that this is a relevant conversation topic, especially as Governor DeSantis' opponent, Charlie Crist, just said a few hours ago that he is in favor of vaccine passports. So this is a conversation we need to continue having, and we appreciate all that you're doing to keep it alive.
Thank you. Appreciate it.